Hello, it is another time to rock again. So, you're welcome to another episode of Introduction to Political Science. So, in our last class in Introduction to Political Science, we dealt with theories and evolution of states. And in today's class, we'll be dealing with the states and the nation. So let's begin with the state. There are different definitions of state, but for the purpose of this course, we'll be examining one. So I will urge you to go ahead and make your research to get different definitions of states. So with that being said, when we look into the world map, we see that the world map is divided by countries that have been divided by very neatly drawn lines. Lines that shows us that this territory belongs to this country and this one belongs to this other country by this other side and this one belongs to this particular country by this other side. Of course, we know that the geopolitical conclusion of this is far away different from the reality. We know that there are civil fightings and contestation of lands, mineral resources, heritage, and so on, which could be traced to some few foreigners that sat down on a table to take coffee and decided to use pencil and biros to draw some lines on the paper to divide some nations that have enjoyed a very long history and a lot of similarities. So I think that this may be one of the reasons why many people call these countries nation states without necessarily going through the dictionary to understand the meaning of nation state. But I'm guessing that if we are able to divide this word into two different parts, we will be able to understand them individually. So let us begin with the meaning of the states. The definition that interests me most is that of Laski, and this is because it considers four important characteristics of the state. According to Laski, it defined the state as a territorial society divided into government and subjects within its allocated physical area, a supremacy over all other institutions. In this definition of Lasky, it carries four elements, and these elements are people, territory, government, and sovereignty. These are important in definition of states. These characteristics divide a state from a state. There is difference between a state in terms of Nigeria, Ghana, Jamaica, Togo, Benin, Canada, USA, and a state in terms of Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, New York, Ontario, etc. So in this course, we're talking about a state in terms of country. With that being said, since the state is an artificial person, it operates through an agent called the government, which is an administrative institution capable of resolving conflict between groups within the society. This makes it possible for it to enforce decisions without necessarily having to force people. Although the government is an agent of the states, which have the legitimate use of force in making regulations and enforcing it within its given territorial boundaries. However, the allegiance and loyalty of citizens is to the state and not to the government. And this is because the state is permanent and the government can change. Let's draw an example from the pool of American political system. The American political system was controlled before now by the Democrats under the leadership of Barack Hussein Obama. And in 2016, the government of American political system changed from Democrat to the Republican when Donald Trump won the election under the Republican. So the American government got changed, but the state remains the same. And the allegiance of the citizens have always been to the states, including the civilians and the non-civilians. So don't get it twisted here. What I'm trying to say to you is that there is difference between the states and governments. The state is principal while the government is an agent. The state's life expectancy is supposed to be permanent while the lifespan of a government is temporarily. That means that it is periodically. A state membership includes everyone, while only few people are being elected or employed in government. And also for the state, the existence is in abstract. You can't touch it, you can't see it, you can't even talk to it one on one. But for government, the existence is in concrete. You can talk to people in government, you can touch them, you can tell them about your problems, and they are there to address every issue. So their existence is in concrete because you can see them, and because they are agents of the state, they are the face of the state. And finally, for the state, membership is compulsory, and for government, membership is optional. So let's quickly talk about the characteristics of the state. Like I mentioned earlier on, there are four important characteristics that cannot be exempted when you talk about a state. Okay, it is important to note that every state got borders. These borders means that it has its own defined territory that it operates from. So it is crystal clear what is internal to the state and what is external to the state. Second is that all states have a prominent population. Essentially, this population are the citizens that lives within the borders of the states. And thirdly is that all states have a central government. This central government basically runs everything within the state. They are the agents of the state and also the face of the state. Fourth is that all states are considered sovereign, at least in principle. What this means is that in principle, all states are free from the interference of other states in their own internal affairs. And states take this very serious. At least in international politics, you see some states complaining of some other state trying to meddle with their internal politics or with their domestic politics. And they are always very upset about that because they consider that as a violation to their sovereignty. Another characteristic is that all states are recognized in international politics. And for the last one is that the state has the monopoly use of force. That means that the state is the only entity in charge of total security and no other person can enforce the law apart from the state, giving it the audacity and the credibility to do that. So from all what we have said, we can summarize to say that the state is a political and legal entity. So let's quickly move to the next concept of a nation. What is a nation? It is technically not correct to refer to a nation to be the same thing as a state or a country. Indeed, the concept of a nation is not political but rather sociological. In fact, a nation can exist even though it does not contain itself in a particular state to be controlled by a particular government. As a matter of fact, a nation exists where there is a union of people based on similarities in language patterns, ethnic relationship, or cultural heritage, or sometimes religion heritage. For example, for thousands of years until the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, the Jews maintained their nationalities without existing within the four walls of a country or of a state. They were scattered around the world, but they still carried the emblem of their nationality. So, let's make it less complicated. A nation is a large group of people united by common elements. These people could be together or scattered around the world. And these common elements are background, history, culture, religion, or language. So above all, I think that the definition of Renan simply explains what a nation is. According to him, a nation is the soul and the spiritual principle of a group of people. According to him, these are two things that in actual sense means one thing. That is, the soul and the spiritual principle means one thing. And also, there are two things that brings them together. One is the common past and two is the present. So I say that a nation is the soul of the people and the spiritual principle, and this is a coin of two sides that have brought them together as a result of their common past and the present with the hope of a better future. So with all of these, I'm sure that we'll be able to differentiate between the states and the nation. And in our next class, we'll be dealing with sovereignty, citizenship rights, human rights, and authority. And I am sure that this video must have added value to you. This channel is not monetized, so please, the least you can do to keep us moving is to please kindly like the video and press the red button to subscribe, and also feel free to share this video among friends and families.